G'day everyone, welcome back to another weekly tipping video on the channel. So it is time for me to go over my tips for the first week of the upcoming final series. Really keen for it. It's going to be 4 quality games for sure. Now I'm aware I did do a finals predictions video last week, but those are just more of my early thoughts, and I want to do a video showcasing on how I think the full bracket could take shape of the whole final series. So this week my tips may or may not change for the first week. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you do go on to enjoy everybody. And as always, let's start off with how I went last week. So just briefly, we'll quickly go over with how I went from round 24, the previous round with the tipping, and I got myself a 7 out of 9. So I think everybody went pretty well. There was a lot of easy tips for the final round of the home and away season, going with Collingwood and Hawthorn and Geelong. I decided to bite the biscuit and go a bit of a risky one with the Tigers to finish off their season well, but it wasn't to be, so I got one of those tips wrong. The Lions and the Swans, pretty easy ones there, and the other incorrect tip I did get was going with the Giants, and I probably should start changing my tips a little bit when there's laid outs, because I think the Giants lost like Brent Daniels. And then yeah, I went with the Saints, backed them in, and that one was a cracker of a game to watch, and backed in Port away from home. And now for a quick look at my tipping competition leaderboard update. A few people got themselves a full 9 out of 9. Ron Shield, Green Bottle, 𝐼𝙗𝐿𝐴 Willis and Matt R got a full 9 out of 9 score from round 24. Very well done to you four. And as for who is leading my comp, it's still 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐴 𝐸𝐴 with 167. And make sure to get your tips in for this upcoming final series, because they do count. Let's now begin, everyone, with our tips for the first week of finals. We start Thursday night, Port Adelaide taking on the Cats at the Adelaide Oval. So as I said at the start of the video, my tips may or may not change for this round, given a week later. I've had a bit longer to think about it, and yeah, I think a few player positions and all that whatnot are starting to crystallise a little bit. For example, 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐿𝐴 is cleared to play, so that's a big inclusion for the Cats after, yeah, he had a couple of injury woes not so long ago. But how about this, eh? It's going to be, what, the 4th time in the last 5 years these two sides have faced off in a qualifying final. And for the most part, Port Adelaide have had the wood over the Cats, especially in the finals. And certainly going to be heading into this one with quite a bit of gumption and confidence. You'd say they're probably one of the most informed teams in the competition. The last 8 weeks or so, they've only dropped, I think, just the one game. They've looked really quality, even with some outs. They've just played some really resilient football. Still a bit of an issue for me, though, is how far can they go with the absence of Dan Houston and Kane Farrell? Who are they going to replace with them defensively? How much can they trust of Logan Evans, who's played under 10 AFL games? He's looked great, though, but it's going to be certainly a big final series upcoming for him. Miles Bergman's going to have to be probably playing in more of a rebounding role. Burn Jones could probably float back there too, as well as Ryan Burton. I've heard Kane Cornes saying 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐴 could go back in defence. I doubt we'd see that. And also forward the ball, who are they going to bring in? They'll probably keep 𝘼𝐻𝐿𝐴 down forward, but do they roll the dice with Dixon, or do they bring Marshall back in? Because when their forward setup has looked bad this year, Port Adelaide, they have played an awful brand of footy, and they can't be playing predictable football against a Cats side that always sets up really well in defence. The Cats this year are actually ranked #1 in the competition when they don't have the ball. Even though the last few weeks they have been well beaten in transition. And another area for Port where they've got to really beat up the Cats upon on is definitely that midfield. 𝐸𝐿𝐴 minds back to last game when these two sides played against each other. Port obliterated the Cats in the clearances thanks to, I think, Butters and also Wines had big games that night. So at home with a highly impact midfield, you look at the Geelong's midfield on paper, it's been getting by, I think, the last few weeks. Paddy Dangerfield is certainly the X factor for the Cats. When he's in there, he can really shut down an opposition, one of the opposition's best midfielders, and also win plenty of clearance himself. Geelong's small forwards have to really be impactful for this game, I feel, as well. Brad Close and Tyson Stengel work up the ground there. Such a good ball moving side when their small forwards get heavily involved, the Cats. And when looking at the absence of Houston and also Kane Farrell, it's a chance to eliminate a bit of Port's rebound and try and get them off the counter. They just continue to prove everyone wrong, the Cats. Who'd have thunk they'd make the top 4 once again this season? But can they be good enough to knock off Port Adelaide here? Look, there's certainly every chance of doing so. As I said before, that midfield's really got to get firing. They've been a better centre bounce side the last few games where they've played. But I just think Port Adelaide, with that high impactful midfield, this is a chance for Horn, Francis, Butters and Rosie to have an electrifying final series. I feel like Port Adelaide's midfield and final series has been a bit of a letdown, but now they've gained a bit of experience. They're building that they're paving that premiership runway really well. I think at home they're going to be tough to beat. So I'll back in Port Adelaide here. I just think they can really do a number on the Cats here. Port win this game, they'll move to home prelim, and they'll win this one by 20 points. Now for Friday night football, what a blockbuster this one is. The two Victorian teams going at it, the Dogs and the Hawks at the MCG. Now this one probably favours the Hawthorn a little bit more, given the Dogs have only played at the MCG, I think, twice this season, unlike Hawthorn, who play most of their games here. But still, it's going to be a great turnout. You'd think 85k, 90k plus. Both teams with how they've played looking like probably two of the more threatening sides in the competition with their respective brands. And it's crazy, one of these sides will be going out first week. Almost feels unfair, to be honest, given how good these sides have looked post-bye. Apart from a few hiccups here and there, like the loss to Brisbane and then also to Port Adelaide and Adelaide at Adelaide Oval, the Dogs have certainly looked like the team to beat when they get up and about. Just think that contested brand is still some of the best out of any team in the competition. So much impact in that midfield. Treloar, 𝐓𝐴𝐿𝐴, 𝐵ontempelli, Ed Richards too, who can carve up opposition mids. And when facing, we've been saying it across the span of this year, a younger and more inexperienced side of Hawthorn, given its finals time too, that finals experience of the Dogs could certainly be a heavy influence and a heavy factor in this game. They're top 4 in the competition this season for points off stoppage. They're one of the better sides, or in fact probably the best side on being able to get it when the ball's in congestion, getting it out of congestion and using it really well inside 50. And that Dogs tall forward line could certainly be a massive factor on the result of this game. It is going to be a wet game, I've been hearing though. Could be a bit of rain on Friday night, but at least it's their responsibilities for ☼𝐻𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐸 and Norton to bring the ball down to ground. And I just think both of them are very good at ground level too, so they might not dominate in the air if there's going to be a wet weather game, but they're very good below their knees, so they're going to be certainly important when the ball hits the deck in their forward 50. But if we shift our attention to Hawthorn, they're another side who's just been smashing it since the bye, playing such an exciting brand, and especially on the big wide open ground of the MCG, their leg drive and their speed off half back on how they can quickly move the ball from the defensive 50, quick as a flash, they are at the back for a goal, is very scary. And the Dogs have had issues this season with defensive transition, so if Hawthorn can really get the game on their terms, not allow the Dogs to win repeated stoppage, get it into a bit of a free-flowing game, get plenty of drive off half-back through the likes of 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐴 and 𝐼𝐵𝐿𝐴, and with the foot skills of D'Ambrosio and also 𝐼𝐵𝐿𝐴 in transition, this is an area where Hawks could really dominate and potentially win the game from. All the numbers are pretty much in the green for Hawthorn, the ground level game, the contested game. There's just such a cohesive unit as well, going inside 50, and those smalls are dangerous. Dylan Moore pushes up the ground really well to help out his team, and Ginnivan and Watson are just two of the players that could definitely say a result on this game, could be match winners. Such a tough one to tip, this one, because you look at the Dogs, they have plenty of strengths with their tall forwards, and I think behind the footy they're a really good intercepting side too, and that contested brand with the midfielders they have. But with Hawthorn, just overall a really solid side. Their smalls get heavily involved, they move the ball really well and could expose the Dogs quite a bit if they get plenty of run and carry going through the middle of the park. So you could really see this one going either way, and I'm still leaning towards the Bulldogs here. I just think probably with that wet weather game, it probably suits them more a little bit better. They've played solid games this year, like against the Giants away and also the Cats away in wet weather this season, and played the game on their terms when they've been such a damaging team off clearance. And I'm going to back in the Bulldogs here. Just think that midfield unit and just they could really dominate the skies as they've been able to do in some wet weather games this season. Yeah, tricky one this. I think the Hawks, if they really get their brand going, they could be coming out of this game with a win for sure, but I'm backing in the Dogs with this one. We'll go the Dogs in a close one by 8 points. For the Saturday games now, first one up at 3:20 p.m, we have another Sydney derby for a finals game. The Swans taking on the Giants at the SCG. Speaking of this year, the Swans definitely, and to be fair, they've had the wood over the Giants for the past few seasons. The only time when the Giants have beaten the Swans, they've won by very slim margins. So the Giants could definitely win this game by a slim margin, but right off the bat, the Swans, just have that Giants measure. Their wins against Collingwood, Essendon, and also the Crows, their ball movement seems to be back. Like when they lost to the Dogs and also Port Adelaide, it just looked like they completely forgotten how to play footy, but they've seemed to get a lot of their mojo back, which is definitely important because they're a bit of that arrogant side, I feel, Sydney, when their confidence is perked up, when it's up and about, they play some really damaging footy. And heading into week 1 of finals with a big SCG home crowd, yeah, their spirits are definitely going to be up, you'd think. It's a big game for those Giants smalls, I feel, if they want to win this game of footy. Toby Green's had a pretty good year, but not as good as the year as he would like compared to his standards. But has he saved his footy, his best footy for the final series? And Brent Daniels too, he can definitely change a game. He's able to win it in and under, and just his work ethic, I think, in transition is definitely a highlight, and maybe somebody like James Jordan might want to go on to him if he gets laid off the chain. Toby Bedford might be up for this game, so he probably locks down on someone like Chad Warner. They've been heavily reliant, the Giants, on Jesse Hogan, but he just keeps on getting it done week in, week out. So Tommy McCartan, it's his job not to allow him to mark those balls inside 50, and that's been a bit of an issue for the Swans. They've let up a lot of marks inside 50 the past couple of weeks. So if the Giants really dominate that efficiency part of their game, where they've been able to win the games purely off efficiency and good cohesion inside 50, or they could certainly get up because of that. Midfield battle is going to be a big one, I feel, too. Both sides' midfields have been a little bit vulnerable, I think, the last 6 weeks. So whose midfield group's really going to stand up for this game? The Giants really bring that high pressure where the Swans have struggled out this year against sides who put up high pressure. And if they really get some good cohesion going inside 50 and some electrifying ball movement, I think the Giants can generally win this game. But I just think Sydney, heading into this final series, we all know they haven't played their best brand of footy possible. But I just think heading into September, they'll know that they really need a lift. They've gotten some confidence-boosting wins the last couple of weeks. They're going to be anticipating, I think, there's plenty of Giants pressure. The Swans, when they're up and about, they're a very high-pressure side. They've moved the ball well as of late, and they've really improved their turnover game. So heading into this one, into September, I think they'll get their confidence up and about and their stars to really shine here. So it's going to be a scrap, I reckon, for 3 quarters. Maybe back and forth, but I just think that Swannies class will rise to the top and pick up the win here over the Giants. So I'll back in the Swans here, and they'll move to home prelim, and they'll beat the Giants here by 16 points. And now for the final game of the round, second elimination final, we have the Lions taking on the Blues at the Gabba up in Brisbane. Still feels like the Lions have probably killed off their season a wee bit. Really should have finished top 4, but geez, the accuracy has killed them in some of their losses the past few games. And as expected, the Lions are coming into this game as warm favourites up against the Blues. And not trying to be naive, but I think it is pretty fair enough. The Blues are probably just making up the numbers heading into this final series, given how they've squeezed in and the injuries they've had the last few weeks. But it's been a really good turnaround for them to at least make the 8, where a lot of people had them falling out. And I feel like the Blues are going to come into this game with not too much pressure given the circumstances that have unfolded, but beware of the sleeping giant, as they do say, whatever the saying is, because the Blues will definitely get plenty of reinforcements for this game. You'd think Kerner, Mackay are chances to get up. De Koning's also a chance. I don't know if they're going to play Sam Doherty, given it's going to be his first game coming back from an ACL. It feels like it'd be pretty rushed, but Chera's also a chance too. McGovern's another one that's up in the air too, so plenty of Carlton core players are going to be making their return. The Blues record, though, doesn't look really friendly heading into this match against the Lions. Since round 17, their only 2 wins have come against the Eagles and also North Melbourne, so 2 of the bottom 3 sides in the competition. How do they fare off here against Brisbane away from home? It's a big question mark for me. Do not know what to expect, so it's an absolute critical importance that Carlton really get some dominance off stoppage, like they've been able to with some quality wins this season. Their ball movement as well really needs to be electric. Going inside 50 against the Eagles, how good was that with the absence of Kerner Mackay? Hitting targets well, so can they try and replicate that sort of brand against the Lions here, who have been one of the sides in the comp this year where they've been exposed a little bit off defensive transition. So if Carlton can really get some of that run and gun game going, well, there might be a chance here. And with Kerner Mackay, those players can just be the sole reasons on winning a game of footy for the Blues. So yeah, Carlton coming in this with not much pressure. I think they're going to throw absolutely everything at Brisbane, but Lions deservedly are the warm favourites here. What's really let them down, though, is their accuracy. It's been shocking, and they really should have won games against the Giants and also the Pies here, and they'd be sitting comfortably in the top 4. But here they are, home elimination final, and I just feel like this is a bridge too far for the Blues to get up. I feel this would just be a disaster if Brisbane would drop this game. But I just think 4 of the ball, so much damaging targets with Joe Danaher, and it's a chance for 𝐓𝐿 𝐿𝐴𝐸 and Zach Bailey to really put together a big finals game, I feel too. They're able to lock it in their forward half really well, the Lions at home, and they're a really good clearance side too at the Gabba, with the likes of Neil and Dunkley getting plenty of hands on the footy. So yeah, I think I've got to go with the Lions here. I just can't really see a world, or don't really have the bravery to tip the Blues here, but hey, it's almost like a free hit. I think they'll throw everything at the Lions, but I just think the Lions with that class. Home field advantage, a big factor too when tipping a side like Brisbane. So yeah, I think the Lions win this game. They'll beat the Blues here and win this game by 19 points. So overall, there are my tips for the first week of finals. Let me know your tips down below in the comments section. It's going to be a cracking 4 games, and stay tuned on the channel, of course, everybody, as I will be live streaming and commentating all the 4 games. So really keen for it. Hopefully you did go on to enjoy today's video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you did go on to enjoy. And until next time, I'll talk to you later. See you later, fellas.